This is a little tool I've been using. It's called Ruby Critic. Has anyone ever used it? Sorry? Okay, has anyone ever used a linter? Does anyone not know what a linter is? Okay, anyway, that's me if you want to ask more questions. What is it? It's there. So it does all this nerdy stuff. It's essentially a wrapper for a bunch of linters that puts sort of UI onto it. There's a commercial tool called Code Climate that does all this stuff. You can pay them, $50 a user a month if you want, or you can just use this for free.
It's free for open source. Code Climate, it's awesome.
The other cool thing about this is you can. I just run it myself locally all the time, but we also are about to do some other stuff with it, as I'll show you later. But I think this is the most important piece, that it's a way to start conversations. So there's all the tech stuff behind it, which I really don't care about. But it's the whole point of, like, when you go into a room, you're going to be like, okay, hey, what do we need to fix? Everyone's going to throw their 2 cents in the room. But it's sort of, how can you guide that conversation and have it in a way that you actually are constructive and you actually end up with a good result? And that's essentially what we use this for. It's really simple. You just do gem install Ruby Critic. You can also include it in your gem file and say include false, so that way you can just do bundle exec and run it, but it won't load it as part of running the browser. It keeps the slug size down. But essentially you can say Ruby Critic, you tell it the folders, or it'll do everything. So a Rails app, you're pretty much going to go app, config, db, lib, spec, and then it'll warn about Ruby versions for some reason. And then these dots just go zzz, and then it goes, hey, here it is. And it'll actually launch a HTML page in the browser as well. And it'll look something like this. And it's actually super cool. If you ever use Code Climate, you'll be like, wow, I got that for free, and it took like 2 minutes. So, I mean, it tells you, okay, what's your score out of 100? You kind of want to keep it above 90 if you work for an anal person like me. And it tells you like all these other things about scores and numbers, but this thing here is the most interesting one. Everyone understands what complexity is. So it's a thing called cyclic complexity, and it should be 15, preferably as low as 7. Most methods are about 35. Essentially, how many branching conditions and how many different variables are introduced and how many different code paths are there through a piece of code. And it comes up with this really big score. And then you can see some of these are red for good reasons. Some of these are way out there for certain reasons. And some of these are green, which I like to see. And then you get this thing called churn. Does anyone know what churn is? Number of times a file's been touched in a commit. And so you can see that this file here has been written about 45 times, and it's probably about 75 whatever's complexity. That thing there is who knows. And then here's something up here which has not been written much, but is super complicated. And the way to look at this is, so the way to actually take this graph after your 2 minutes of dots is to say, okay, there's really 4 quadrants to talk about. And the first one you talk about is this one. That's the stuff that's been touched a lot and is really bad. That's the like, we don't want to care about that right now. That dot is actually the schema file. So obviously that gets written all the time, it's really big and nasty, so you can ignore it, but essentially it's the
schema.
Sorry?
You still include schema.rb in your project.
Because then you can do rake db schema load, and you don't have to wait for all the migrations to run.
Yeah. Not worth it. It's not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. The difference in the time that it takes for a migration to run compared to schema load.
I use it.
Depends on the migrations.
It
does.
But how often do you have to do a rebuild right from the beginning?
All the time. We push feature instances for every feature branch.
Okay.
And we do it all inside Docker, so it's.
We got one project where it loved just swapping. Each time you ran schema, it would swap two fields around each time.
That's because you've probably got people with different versions, and so some are having null in the schema file and some not.
No, this is just if you ran your full migrations, it just kept on changing that around, and we got to such a shit stage of it. We said it's gone. So we've never had a problem with it. But
I'll keep going.
We get that, but I'm really the only developer, so I don't give any conflicts.
Guarantee kill.
So this quadrant, so that's like anything over there. It's like you should be talking about that first. That's going to be the really bad stuff. Then you get this one here where it's like, it's a new file, but it's really complicated. And typically, it's cowboys, it's sort of like, oh, I'm just going to do all of this stuff. Typically, there was no pairing involved, either at the start or later. These are the pull requests you hate to review. These are the pull requests that kind of happened 3 years ago that you went around for. This is the stuff you're like, what's going on here? I wish you'd shown me earlier. And so that's sort of the second place to look at. As you can probably not tell, most of the files that end up in narrow specs in Ruby, the tests. It's like, hey, here is this, I'm stubbing stuff, you're mocking stuff, here's all these environments, all these scenarios. So you end up with these spec files this big. I'd love someone to come up with a better way of breaking up specs to do that. I know you can have shared some things and shared examples and whatever, but anyway, so you want to look there second. Can anyone guess what the next one is? You got it? So this is actually a really nice place to see files. It's files that have been touched a lot, but they're not extremely complex. So often you'll see it's like configuration files. So gem file will sit over here. Things like factories. So if you've got a factory that's defining some sort of mapping of a hash to class types or something, they'll end up over here. But the other side, outside of the case outside of that, is where you've got files that get touched a bit, but they haven't changed a lot. And these are sort of really ripe for refactoring because it's sort of stuff that's not too complicated yet, but it's like, I think I could actually change this and not F everything. So, and it's a really good place where ideas, like these things that come out, unlike this stuff that everyone's like, oh, that was done by that guy, he's been gone for 3 years, we're just not going to touch that. And then there's the, kind of mostly luck, or you've had clear requirements, you got to talk about it. It was generally fairly simple requirements, or it ends up over here because you've taken that stuff apart, or had to do something where you had to get into there, or you've had some, one of these concepts and broken it down into clear pieces. I like automating everything, most of my life actually. And so what we're actually doing with this now is hooking it into Circle. In the command line, you can actually tell it to say, hey, all I want is that final score. So we're actually going to start failing builds at less than 90%. And the other thing is anyone using Circle? So it has artifacts, so it has this environment variables within artifacts directory. So what you can do is if you write stuff into that artifacts directory, it actually ends up on S3. So you know what the path will look like. And it's actually done now, but we're not failing yet. But it will post to Slack. So every time you push something up, it'll do the build, and then it posts to Slack saying like, hey, there's a new Ruby Critic for this particular branch or whatever it may be, and that way anyone can go and have a look. So it'll say, hey, the percentage was this, and there's a thing, and it's just sort of pinging that all day, and that way you can say like, oh, that looks a bit low, like where do we pop on the 90? And that way you can actually pop it up and see and go, oh, okay, that's what's happened. So it's super cool. And that's it. I would recommend everyone at least just the gem install this and just run it locally, and it's going to pop up the browser and have a look what's making a mess.
So you get something that turns up in one of those quadrants you don't want it to turn up in. How do you especially that top left quadrant? What are your steps to take next? What do you do about that?
So cowboy stuff, typically it's probably me. Because you go into it knowing that's what it looks like. So the first thing I would do is generally go to tests. I find most of this stuff is you're always going to use tests to break it up. So you'll go, okay, you assume you know that there's something you want it to do and it's overly complicated. So the test probably looks like shit. And most of the stuff up there is tests, typically. So look at that and go, okay, if there's a really complicated test, it probably means that the class itself is doing more than it should. So then start breaking the test up. So look at the test and go, oh, well, all that test stuff there looks common. So just make a separate file for it and then go, okay, if this was going to be isolated, if this was testing something that was isolated, how would the classes change? So you've still got your test coverage for the functionality, and then you can actually move stuff around between files and change this test then to be speaking to a particular class that's different to wherever the spaghetti was.
So basically you're just chunking your tests.
Yeah, just moving little bits. It's like Lego. It's kind of like, okay, I've got a little Lego building here and a Lego building there. I'm taking a few bits off here and popping it over there. It always is the same number of pieces. It still achieves the same result.
That's cool. I'm gonna have a look at that.
Yeah, it's free. It literally takes 2 minutes.
Does it do anything like Ruby, the Robocop type?
It doesn't do. It uses other things that other than Robocop. Robocop's going to complain about stuff that no one cares about mostly.
But I want that extra comma.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to like, but that's not
I
like.
want my lines to be 300 away.
Yeah, that's fine.
What was it called again?
Ruby Critic.
Ruby Critic.
One word?
The tools behind it, is it flog?
Flog, flag,
Freak.
Reek, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's codes, a lot of codes.
It's exactly the same as what Code Climb uses.
Yeah, it's
just
all the same stuff.
wraparound.
Isn't that what the guy in the Valley was doing? Similar to that?
Yeah, doing stuff on. I mean,
They were gamifying that. weren't
yeah, they were doing all sorts of stuff. And
Yeah.
I just use this. It's just,
How do you run it again?
you just essentially you do a
Ruby Critic in the directory.
where is it? Yeah, you tell it the folders.
Yeah, any of those tools you can pick it still as well. So you use them as a sampling tool and set up your files for it, so you can
Yeah.
customize flog to look for exactly what you're after and get a set build for how you work.
Awesome. Alright, thanks Chris, and thanks